And now, folks, it is now time. We're going to go and cap off the episode with the grand finale. And for this grand finale, considering that we started this off with a story about Avatar: The Last Airbender, we're going to go and conclude this with another story about Avatar: The Last Airbender. And this time around, this is primarily going to be focusing on the new movie that came out on Paramount Plus, Avatar Aang: The Last Airbender. And on the same day as the movie's release, of course, at San Diego Comic-Con, they went and discussed about Avatar Aang, not only showing the movie, but also going deep into the creation of the feature itself, having a chat with the cast and crew members, how things went behind the scenes, and how they ultimately crafted this new story. However, this actually came with a major controversy, primarily because of one particular image that was shown at Comic-Con. And what I'm talking about is this right here. Now, this is an image that has come out of the book of the art of Avatar: Aang: The Last Airbender. So while they were having their presentation, they also wanted to show some pages for that particular book to go and illustrate more about how they went and crafted the visuals of this feature. And this one in particular shows how they went and created one of the new characters of the movie, Taga, whom in the feature is voiced by Dave Bautista and is one of the main new characters who is considered to be the Lost Airbender, the second airbender alive after Aang. However, the one thing that really stirred controversy is actually in regards to the text that is in the top right corner. And if I could go down to what is it specifically that it says, it actually states right over here to go and read you what the text actually states. It says, face shape exploration, no hair exploration yet. Please consider that if they are East Asian, the shave plus braid queue hairstyles, which are specifically Mongolian Chinese, may not be a good fit. Also, according to ChatGPT, in general, it is not common for Southeast Asian cultures to emphasize or traditionally have strong association with beards. Traditionally valued a clean-shaven appearance or minimal facial hair grooming. Now, at that point, that's when a lot of fans have noticed this and they went, I'm sorry, what did you just say? Did you just say that ChatGPT was a source in this? Did they use ChatGPT in order to create Avatar Aang: The Last Airbender? And that's where we see the backlash and the anger and the outrage over the fact that at one point during the production of Avatar Aang: The Last Airbender, it used ChatGPT. And from there, that's where you saw many people have pretty much highlighted that, well, AI was used in Avatar Aang, the movie is completely ruined, it is pretty much crap, and basically people just slamming and hating the feature, even to the point of calling it AI slop. However, after that controversy was ignited and spread like wildfire across social media, there was immediately a response coming from the people who did work on the feature. Most particularly, hold on, there we go. Okay. It had an error at first, but it just needed a bit of a reload. There was one person who did work in the movie, specifically a user by the name of Kat Sai, and she actually wrote, I have no clue why it was on that slide or who put it there, and every member of the crew I worked with is 100% against AI. Every aspect of the animation is handcrafted by real artists, and I hope that people don't use this slide as a reason to detract from how much love and labor went into the film. And she was not the only one that has addressed this issue. In fact, several people in the production did highlight that there was no actual AI used in the movie itself and that the team behind it is fully against AI. In fact, this article on Gizmodo actually did share more about who else has actually called out the claims and said that it is not true. Another one is actually a compositing supervisor at Paramount, Dale Drummond, also commented, reading from my source here on Gizmodo, that Dale guaranteed that AI has not touched a single pixel in the film. It was not used at all in visual development. The art book was outsourced. Another person commented was Jake Panion, who was a production designer, and he said that he speculated that very early on, a character artist may have tried it for background research. To the best of his knowledge, that would have been the only incident in which this occurred. But like Drummond and Sy, he emphasized absolutely no artwork on this movie was AI generated, and all the art was done by hand. As the AI movement gained momentum, we took a stance and saw ourselves as standing against it in the most opposite way possible. Everything in this movie is carefully and aggressively hand done by talented and amazing humans. And on top of that, we even received a comment from the CEO of one of the studios that worked on the animation of Avatar Aang, which is Barbara Steffen, in which she put out a comment here by saying, the precision of artistry and animation in every frame should be celebrated. It is the result of incredible collaboration across every department and discipline, accumulating in a breathtaking masterpiece led by an exceptional creative leadership team. Flying Bark practices a traditionally influenced hand-drawn animation style, relying on industry software including Harmony, Maya, Houdini, and Nuke. Our talented artists produced everything for Aang in the studio using traditional methods. So this is pretty much the situation where we are unfortunately in now. Is that currently, with this whole controversy, the cartoon community is rather divided on this entire aspect, and you see a lot of different sides on where people are. On one hand, you got the people who do say that this does count as using AI, that literally any form of AI touching upon a production, regardless of no matter how small it may be, that still counts as using AI. And you will have those people who will go and approach that the same way that they would approach someone saying a slur or someone inappropriately touching someone else without their consent. So they would see that as a bad thing. Like just the fact alone that somehow, in some way, that ChatGPT would be used somewhere in the development of Avatar Aang, that means that AI was used in order to create Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender. But then on the other hand, you also got another group of people who say that, no, this is not true. To say that Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender used AI in the production would actually be considered misinformation, because there is nothing in terms of the actual creation of the movie itself where AI was actually involved at all. There was no AI that actually helped out in terms of writing the script. There is no AI used in order to craft the animation. So to say that there is AI in Avatar Aang would actually be considered misinformation. And I will say that on my part personally, I would categorize myself on the latter. I fully do believe what the artists are saying, that there is no actual AI in Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender. Now, does that necessarily mean that what we saw with the evidence saying that, oh, ChatGPT was used during the development at some point in Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender, is that misinformation? Probably not. But I would say that if you are going to go and accuse Avatar Aang for using AI to create the film, that I would consider that to be legit misinformation. Because in that regards, there are so many ways where you would go and actually take that and consider that to be false. Like, it would be too vague to the point that most of the answers related to that would not actually be true. Because like I just said, there was no AI at all that was used in the writing process, and there was no AI used in the animation process or in any of the other process like acting, the music, in editing, or anything like that whatsoever. There's none of that actual AI that was done in terms of actually crafting the movie itself. So yes, I would consider that as misinformation. And even if there are people out there who would go out of their way in order to go and say that, well, technically, because it says that ChatGPT is involved, then that should count. That's not a lie. That's actually a real thing that had happened. Okay, now let's say theoretically that is actually true. Let's say hypothetically that technically this does count as using AI. But you have to keep in mind about the context of what this is. It's the fact that there may have been AI used by maybe just one person to go and do research in terms of developing the characters in the movie. And at that point, even if it does count, what's going to be the course of action? What should we do in order to go and respond to this? Are we going to go and completely boycott Avatar Aang altogether? Are we going to go and completely reject the film and just say that it's AI slop? Should we discourage people from watching Avatar Aang or consuming anything from Avatar The Last Airbender because now it's a product of AI and it's forever poisoned? No, I feel like honestly, any of those types of activist style actions would honestly be going way too far. Honestly, they would be a bit too extreme, and not to mention that they would absolutely disregard the actual hard work that the animators did put into this movie. Like, it would, like, to go and say that this is just AI slop, despite the fact that everyone in the team is completely against AI and that they actually did put in hard work with their own hands in order to go and craft the movie. It's honestly massively disingenuous and like honestly disrespectful at best in terms of treating them and treating the work itself. So yeah, in that regards, no, there's no real point in really calling it AI when even the use of AI itself, like as stupid as that may be, it still feels relatively minor. I would even say insignificantly minor compared to the actual hard work that is fully put into this. And this is why I feel like this actually highlights another major problem within the toxic side of the cartoon community. And that is in regards to when they would go and call out something as AI. Like, honestly, I feel like nowadays the AI accusations are increasingly becoming worse and worse because now it's becoming far more common where we see the fandom accuse something of being AI and it turns out to not be true at all. And I mean, it's not just with this one in particular, but we have also seen some recent ones happen where people would go and immediately say, that's AI, when it turns out the people behind the scenes have to really go out of their way to put out a clarification to go and say that it's not true whatsoever. In fact, we recently have seen this with Alvin and the Chipmunks, that recently they announced that there's going to be plans for a new reboot coming out, and they did put out a concept image of what Alvin could possibly look like. And from there, it resulted in massive backlash where people would go and immediately attack it and saying that, oh, the new Alvin show is going to have AI. Alvin and the Chipmunks is now going to be an AI series and stuff like that. And from there, one of the creators have to go out of their way to go and clarify that not only is there not AI used in that image, but that's not even going to be the final look of how the chipmunks are going to be in that particular show. And it highlights a massive issue of how people are just shooting first and then asking questions later. But if you want a perfect example of continuous accusations of animation being used AI again and again, but it turns out to actually be false, it's not just with mainstream animated films. I mean, it's already bad enough that so many mainstream movies nowadays are being blindly accused of being AI, but it actually just turns out to be some angry, terminally online troll that just doesn't like the look of something. Basically saying, basically using AI as a new term for like garbage or something that they don't think is good or whatever. But if you want to see like the most accusations that ultimately turn out to be false, it's with Disney. Like, honestly, I feel like this is one of the major reasons why I'm not on board with the Disney hate trend. In fact, this is why I feel like nowadays the Disney hate trend has become just absolute cringe, and that the hate spawns out more slop than what Disney would go and regularly put out. Because the thing is that you'll see people immediately want to go and build up the hate on whatever movie that they would go and release nowadays. And even to the point of using AI to go and say that, oh, well, this thing is not good because Disney used AI on it, without any actual evidence to actually back up their claim. In fact, we've seen this, like, it's still happening to this day with people accusing Hex of using AI. And people are just so desperate now. Like, I know that there are things that we can legitimately go and criticize with Hex, with what we have seen so far with the teaser trailer and stuff like that. And I know so far it doesn't look like the most exciting animated movie that's going to be coming out. But the grand majority of the accusations that people are throwing at it, they're nothing but false. And it's just trying to go and hype up the Disney hate more so than to actually than to actually judge the movie itself, than to actually see how the movie is ultimately going to be. Like, you get so many people who would go out of their way to accuse it of being AI, to being like something purposely made just for vertical screens, or to say like that the freaking Alex Jones style conspiracy theory that it's Disney's revenge against Dana Terrence and make their own version of the Owl House. Oops, sorry, I think I knocked a bit of the microphone. Didn't mean to do that, but as I was saying, it's some kind of or they would spread some Alex Jones style, or they would spread some Alex Jones style conspiracy theory about the fact that this is Disney's revenge against Dana Terrence and that they want to make their own version of the Owl House without her, something like that. Like, just so many different stupid accusations that honestly, it makes it harder and harder to listen to any criticisms whatsoever when it's becoming a case of The Boy Who Cried Wolf, because a lot of the hate that it's receiving, it's nothing more but legitimate misinformation. And this is especially the case with the use of AI. Like, just saying, like, whatever new Disney movie that they would go and put out, rather it be like with Strange World, Moana 2, Wish, Hoppers, Toy Story 5, Lightyear, or what have you, or even with Hex, that they would blindly accuse it of being AI slop when it's the opposite. And it's actually known that the people who do work at both Pixar and Disney Animation, they're no different than any other studio out there, or no different than anybody in the cartoon community, where they are a group of people that are fully against AI and are against using AI onto their own works. And honestly, like, this is also another aspect that I feel like this is just, why is it the Disney hate trend has become very toxic and more of a detriment than actually helpful for anyone? It's the fact that honestly, at this point, with all the misinformation people are desperately spreading towards the new films that Disney would go and make just to go and keep that hate bandwagon going, I am pretty convinced that there are at least some Disney haters out there that secretly wish that Disney would use AI on their movies, regardless if it's for their animated films or if it's for their live action remakes or what have you. I'm pretty convinced that there are people who want Disney to use AI, not because they support the tech, but because they want to feel justified in hating them. They want so badly to be seen as the heroes of their own narrative, and they desperately want to be seen as right, and that somehow being constantly angry on social media, like on Twitter or Reddit or Facebook or Blue Sky or what have you, somehow makes them look good, and that they get rewarded with praise and adoration and attention and engagement and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I feel like now more than ever, and I feel like with Hex, that is the absolute proof of it, that a lot of, like, most of the Disney hate nowadays, it's massively disingenuous, that now people are forcing themselves to go and really hate Disney to the point of using misinformation, like accusing them of using AI when it's not actually the case, or they don't even have proof of that. I'll even say the same thing with the Disney live action remakes. I mean, I am not a fan whatsoever, and I think the new Moana remake is absolute garbage. But to go and accuse that of being AI slop, honestly, it's disingenuous, and not to mention highly disrespectful towards the artists and animators who work on this, that, you know, they have spent years doing their best to create something enjoyable and something fun. And all that just to have some trolls online to just label that as slop, or to label that as something that it is not, which is AI. And to go back into what I was talking about before with the whole thing with Avatar Aang, I feel like, honestly, when we look back and see the big problem with how these accusations of something is AI, but it turns out to be false, like, this is further proving my point of what I talked about before when Avatar Aang was leaked, is that right now, the toxic side of the cartoon community, right now, they are so deep in their own populist mindset that they only care about one thing, and that is to have a common enemy. I mean, right now, the cartoon community status is pretty much in a critically bad state, where I feel like the end of the cartoon community might be near, where it's no longer cool to be an animation fan at all, where they're just going to implode within because of that populist mindset, where the only thing nowadays that's holding them together is to have a common enemy. If they don't have a common enemy, then there's no point in keeping the cartoon community alive. And honestly, with what we have seen with Avatar Aang, this is a great example where their populist mindset of going against of having this narrative of the people, which are the fans, versus the corporate elite, which is the entity that they choose to hate, at that point, like, it's actually doing a lot more harm than good. That not only are they doing nothing towards the companies, but they end up actually hurting the creators, the animators. You know, they're going after them more. You know, they're undermining them, and they're constantly throwing them under the bus, whether it be intentionally or not. That they're just doing it for their own personal narrative, for their own personal cause of quote unquote saving animation. We have seen this with the leaks, where the Avatar Aang leak happened, and people would go and fully engage with it and don't actually care if this would end up hurting the animators in the process, because in their mind, they are doing this to fight against the enemy, which in that case was Paramount, because of their act of putting Avatar Aang on Paramount Plus instead of having it be fully released in theaters. And then we see this case right over here, where it's actually a pretty similar story, where now people are going against the movie, where there are some people who would go and attack Avatar Aang, and the main reason is because they want to go and attack the enemy, which is AI. And I believe the worst thing about it, like the worst part over the fact that people would keep going after whatever mainstream movie and accusing it of AI, and it turns out the allegations are false. The worst thing is that this is indirectly helping out AI, because everybody is so focused on whatever new mainstream thing is out there that AI can have an easy pass to go like right under their noses, go slither in without anyone noticing and just put themselves in a spot where they won't go and actually find them. Like, AI can still continue to thrive as long as those who are against it keep going after the wrong targets again and again and again and again. And that's not even to go and mention that there's a lot of them that don't want to do anything in terms of the AI that's being implemented on social media. How many people are there who actually would go and actually quit Twitter because of Grok altogether? Not a lot, as you may think. In fact, there are even a lot of prominent animators who are fully against AI, but still use Twitter nonetheless. Like, they feel like with Twitter, well, there's nothing they can do about that AI thing, so they'll just go and continue enabling that one, which honestly ultimately makes it feel like the crusade against AI kind of feels pretty disingenuous. Like, if you think fighting against AI is going to help you get likes and retweets on Twitter and stuff like that, then it's hard to not look at it as performative and that you're doing it more for engagement than actually to have a moral stance against AI. So overall, with this entire situation, it just really makes it feel like an absolute mess. And it highlights that, honestly, if we properly want to go against AI, we should not go and be reactionary about it. We cannot go and immediately jump to conclusions, because that's actually going to do more harm than good. We cannot go and say like, oh, you know what? Well, that's going to be I think that thing is AI. Let's go and form a mob and go and attack it. No, that's not going to help out at all. We need to have critical thinking. We need to go and actually process what is actually going on, get the facts first, and then we can go and answer it. So in the case here with Avatar Aang, okay, so there is a page here from the art book of Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender, in which they say in one little part that they use ChatGPT as a source. Okay, now the answer is, at this point, who is the person that put ChatGPT as a source? Well, Gizmondo actually did put out a little bit of a clue into this, in which it actually... yes, it actually says right over here that a swift backlash soon followed against Avatar Aang, but then things got complicated. Some folks online did some digging for further context and learned that not only was the material in question from a presentation slide about Avatar Aang's upcoming art book, the person who wrote it wasn't involved with the film's production. Ramin Zahed, who previously written art books for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man and Dogman, isn't credited on the film's production on IMDb, and art books are often outsourced to people uninvolved with a project's development. So, if anything, the only person who would have true answers as to why ChatGPT was mentioned is Ramin Zahed. And by the way, this is not a call to go and harass Ramin. Okay, I'm not encouraging that whatsoever. All I'm saying is that Ramin is the one who has the answers, and hopefully he can go and clarify about that situation right there, because that obviously caused a massive mess that ultimately became a big detriment to the movie itself and also the artists behind the scenes. So the moral of this story here is that we need to step back from having that reactionary response. You are not going to go and solve problems by immediately being angry and desperately wanting to be right about something, all right? You're not going to save the world by continuously unleashing anger because of something that you don't like. We need to have a thought process about what actually happened, what's the context of it. Like, we need to have some information before actually putting out a proper response to this. And if not, then it's just going to cause a mess that ultimately, I'm just going to go and say right now, if you do care about animators behind the scenes, making false accusations about AI is actually going to hurt the people behind the scenes than actually do good. Now, you don't have to like any of these projects. You don't have to like whatever projects that would put out and would be accused of AI. If you're not a fan of Avatar Aang, or if you're not a fan of whatever new Disney movie is coming out, if you're not excited for Hex, that's perfectly fine. But to go out of your way and to just put down the something and literally using stuff like misinformation, just, disregarding it as slop, calling it AI and stuff like that, that is actually more hurtful towards the people who did work on it than actually the movie, than actually doing good to help save animation or to help save animators or anything like that. So honestly, we need to have a cooler head. Like, honestly, this is the moment where I gotta say that when it comes to like fandoms in general, of course, but especially with the cartoon community, they need to learn to control their temper. But and I say this because it is that kind of anger issues that they would keep on expressing on social media that's ultimately going to destroy themselves before they could go and destroy whatever they hate, whether it be Disney or AI or anything like that. So yeah, honestly, let's make sure that we don't accuse the wrong thing as AI, because false AI accusations not only hurt artists and animators, but they also help AI as well.